Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the massive fleet spread across the dark void of space. 500 warships from 12 different worlds floated in perfect formation. Each ship bristled with weapons that could destroy planets. The sight filled him with pride and confidence. The reptilian admiral's scales glowed a deep green in the bridge lights. His yellow eyes tracked the movement of ships on the holographic display. Each dot represented thousands of crew members and enough firepower to level cities. This was the largest military force the Galactic Confederation had ever assembled. "Status report," commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge. Captain, an officer with 4 arms, stepped forward. Her compound eyes reflected the data streams flowing across her tablet. "All fleet groups report ready, Admiral. The Empire contributes 90 ships. The Crystalline Collective brings 80 vessels. The others have provided the remaining 330 warships." Nodded slowly. Each species in the Confederation had sent their best ships and crews. The sleek vessels of the aquatic floated next to the brutal war barges of the militant. Delicate exploration ships from the peaceful had been converted into makeshift destroyers for this mission. "And our target?" the Admiral asked. "Sol system, Admiral, 3rd planet from their star. The humans call it Earth." His mandibles clicked nervously. "Our intelligence reports are limited." The bridge fell quiet. Every officer knew why they were here. 3 months ago, human ships had been spotted near the Outer Rim territories. The aliens had tried to make contact, but the humans had simply observed and left. No communication, no explanation, just cold, silent watching. Then came the incidents. Human vessels appeared near alien colonies, scanned them thoroughly, and disappeared again. They never attacked, never threatened, but their presence was unsettling. The humans studied alien ships like scientists examining insects. It was insulting. The Confederation Council had debated for weeks. Some members wanted to establish peaceful contact. Others demanded immediate action. Fear won the debate. The humans were unknown, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. Better to remove the threat before it grew stronger. "Show me the intelligence reports again," ordered. The main screen filled with blurry images of human ships. The vessels looked crude and primitive. Flat metal surfaces with harsh angles. No elegant curves or artistic designs like proper starships. They resembled flying chunks of steel more than spacecraft. "Analysis indicates the humans achieved faster-than-light travel only recently," reported Lieutenant O, a thin humanoid with pale blue skin. "Their ships use chemical propulsion for local movement. Energy readings suggest primitive fusion reactors. We detect no advanced shielding or gravitational manipulation technology." Studied the images carefully. Human ships looked like they were built in a scrapyard. Rough welding lines were visible on the hulls. External components stuck out at odd angles. Everything about them screamed primitive technology and poor engineering. "Weapon systems?" the Admiral asked. "Unknown, but presumably basic," O replied. "We see what appear to be launch tubes and rotating turrets, likely projectile weapons or simple energy cannons, nothing that could threaten modern shielding." Several officers laughed at this. Projectile weapons were museum pieces. Most civilized species had abandoned such crude methods thousands of years ago. Energy weapons and antimatter warheads were far more efficient. "How many ships do they have?" asked. "Uncertain. Our long-range scouts detected perhaps 20 to 30 vessels in their home system. All appear to be of similar primitive design." The Admiral's confidence grew stronger. 20 ships against 500. Primitive weapons against advanced technology. This would not be a battle. It would be an extermination. "Admiral," interrupted Commander Os, a large, furry creature from the ice worlds. "Why are we treating these humans as such a threat? They sound like barely developed primitives." Turned to address the bridge crew. "The Council fears what humans might become, not what they are now. Intelligence suggests they develop technology very quickly. Their species seems naturally aggressive and expansionist. Better to end this threat while they are still weak. He gestured toward the fleet display. Besides, we have overwhelming force. This mission will be completed quickly and efficiently. The humans will surrender or be destroyed. Either outcome serves our purposes. The bridge officers exchanged glances. Some looked uncomfortable with the idea of attacking a weaker species. Others seemed eager for battle. The delegation was practically drooling at the thought of combat. Fleet composition looks good, reported. Heavy cruisers from the Empire will serve as the main battle line. Assault ships will handle close combat. The crystalline collective siege vessels can bombard any planetary defenses. Fast attack ships from other species will handle cleanup operations. Nodded approvingly. Each species contributed their strengths to create an unstoppable force. The humans would face the combined military might of 12 civilizations. They had no chance of survival. What about human ground forces? Asked another officer. Reports suggest they are still divided into separate nations on their planet, O answered. No unified planetary government. No coordinated defense systems. They fight each other more than external threats. This actually works in our favor. The admiral smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Divided enemies were easy enemies. The humans would probably blame each other instead of organizing proper resistance. Time to target, asked. 4 hours until we reach the edge of their system, Admiral. Our plan is to deploy in standard formation and demand their immediate surrender. If they refuse, we begin planetary bombardment. Looked out at his magnificent fleet one more time. Each ship represented the pinnacle of military engineering from its respective species. Weapons that could crack moons, shields that could deflect solar flares, computer systems that could calculate 1,000,000 targeting solutions per second. Against them stood a handful of primitive human ships with crude weapons and basic technology. The outcome was already decided. All ships prepare for final approach, the Admiral commanded. Today we remove a potential threat to galactic peace and order. As the massive fleet began moving toward the Sol system, none of the alien commanders noticed the small objects floating silently among the asteroids. Objects that had been watching them for hours, recording everything, and transmitting detailed information back to Earth. The humans knew they were coming, and they were ready. The warning klaxons echoed through Admiral's flagship as the sensor operator called out the detection. Every head on the bridge turned toward the main display screen. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, Admiral, reported Ensign, her tentacles dancing over the sensor controls. Single vessel emerging from the asteroid field. Leaned forward in his command chair. After hours of traveling through empty space, they finally had their first glimpse of human technology. Put it on screen. The image that appeared made several officers gasp. The human ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of their largest cruiser. But size was not what shocked them. The vessel looked like nothing they had ever seen. Instead of smooth, curved surfaces that deflected energy and reduced radar signatures, the human ship was all sharp angles and flat planes. The hull was dark gray, almost black, with strange geometric patterns covering its surface. It looked less like a spaceship and more like a giant flying weapon. Analysis demanded. Lieutenant O worked frantically at his station. Admiral, I'm getting strange readings. The ship appears to be approximately 2 kilometers long, but our sensors cannot determine its mass. The hull material is unknown. Computer databases have no match. What about weapons? Asked Captain. That's the problem, Captain. I can detect massive energy sources inside the ship, but no visible weapon ports. No missile launchers. No energy cannon emplacements. The entire hull surface is smooth except for those patterns. Studied the image more carefully. The geometric patterns looked almost like writing, but in 3 dimensions. They seemed to shift slightly in the light, creating optical illusions that hurt to look at directly. "Communication incoming," announced the communications officer. "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with static, then cleared to reveal a calm, emotionless human voice. "Unknown fleet, you are in violation of Terran space. Withdraw immediately or face defensive action." Silence fell over the bridge. Several officers looked at each other in disbelief. Did they just threaten us?" whispered Commander Oz. Scales flushed red with anger. "One ship against 500, and they dare make demands." He gestured to the communications officer. "Open a channel. This is Admiral of the Galactic Confederation Combined Fleet. You are surrounded and surrender immediately and your deaths will be quick." The response came back immediately. "Negative. You have 10 minutes to begin withdrawal. This is your only warning." The channel closed. The bridge erupted in shocked conversation. "The arrogance," mandibles clicked rapidly. "Do they think we are fools?" "Maybe it's a bluff," suggested Oz. "Perhaps this is their only ship and they hope to scare us away." Considered this. Humans were reported to be deceptive creatures. Maybe they were hoping sheer audacity would work where force could not. "Science team, I want a full analysis of that ship. Everything. Hull composition, power sources, potential weapons, weak points. I want to know how to kill it." The science officers bent over their instruments. For several minutes, only the hum of sensors and computers filled the bridge. "Admiral O finally reported, his voice uncertain. We're having significant problems with our scans." "What kind of problems?" "The hull material seems to absorb or deflect our sensor beams. We can get surface readings, but cannot penetrate inside the ship. It's like trying to see through solid metal." "What about thermal imaging, energy detection?" "That's where it gets strange, Admiral. We're reading massive energy signatures from within the vessel, but the heat output is minimal. Whatever power source they're using, it's incredibly efficient." "Or incredibly dangerous," muttered another officer. Stood and paced to the main. The human ship hung motionless in space, not moving to attack or retreat. It simply waited like a predator watching prey. "Fleet status?" he asked. "All ships report ready for combat, Admiral. Weapons charged, shields raised, targeting solutions locked." "And they're still not moving?" "No, sir. The human ship maintains position. No evasive maneuvers, no course changes. They're just sitting there." This bothered more than if the humans had attacked immediately. Any sane commander facing 500 enemy ships would either run or try to take a few enemies down with them. This calm waiting suggested either complete insanity or complete confidence. "Admiral," called the sensor operator, "I'm detecting some kind of scanning activity from the human ship." "They're scanning us?" "Yes, sir. Very detailed scans. They seem to be analyzing every ship in our fleet individually." His blood ran cold. Detailed scans meant the humans were gathering tactical information. Ship types, weapon placements, shield frequencies, crew numbers. They were studying his entire fleet like scientists examining specimens. "How long until our scans of their ship are complete?" he asked. "At current rate, several more hours, Admiral. Their hull is proving very difficult to analyze." "But they're scanning 500 ships simultaneously without any problem." "It appears so, sir." The bridge fell quiet as the implications sank in. The humans had sensor technology far superior to anything the Confederation possessed. They could analyze an entire fleet in minutes while remaining completely hidden from return scans. "Sir," interrupted another officer, "long-range sensors are detecting movement in the outer system." "More human ships?" "Difficult to tell, Admiral. We're picking up energy signatures, but they're very faint. Could be ships running silent or could be sensor ghosts." Felt his confidence beginning to crack. The mission had been planned around fighting primitive humans with basic technology. This ship in front of them was anything but primitive. Communications, try to raise them again. Channel open, Admiral. Human vessel, this is your final warning. Stand down immediately or we will open fire. The response came back in the same calm, emotionless tone. Acknowledged, you have 8 minutes remaining. 8 minutes. Realized the humans were actually counting down the time they had given. This was not a bluff. This was a countdown to something. Battle stations, he ordered. All ships prepare for combat. Target the human vessel and prepare to fire on my command. As alarms sounded throughout the fleet, stared at the strange human ship. Its geometric patterns seemed to pulse slightly in the starlight. For a moment, he wondered if those patterns might be more than decoration. 7 minutes, Admiral, reported the communications officer without being asked. Gripped his command chair. Whatever the humans thought they could accomplish with one ship against 500, he would find out very soon. The countdown continued. Admiral watched the countdown reach its final minutes. The human ship still hung motionless in space, showing no signs of retreat or surrender. Its dark hull absorbed the light from the distant star, making it look like a piece of space itself had come alive. 5 minutes remaining, Admiral, reported the communications officer. Had enough of this game. One ship could not possibly threaten his entire fleet, no matter how advanced it might be. The humans were clearly trying to buy time, perhaps hopping for reinforcements that would never come. Commander, okay, he called to the captain of the nearest frigate. Fire warning shots across their bow. Show them we mean business. Acknowledged, Admiral. The frigate moved forward from the fleet formation. It was a typical Confederation warship, sleek and elegant, with purple energy weapons glowing along its hull. Captain OK was a veteran officer who had fought in 3 border wars. Charging plasma cannons, OK reported over the comm, targeting area directly in front of the human vessel. Watched on the main screen as bright purple energy gathered at the frigate's weapon ports. Plasma cannons were standard Confederation weapons, capable of melting through most known armor types. The energy buildup was visible to everyone in the fleet. Firing warning shots, OK announced. 3 brilliant bolts of purple plasma streaked across space toward the human ship. Each bolt contained enough energy to vaporize a small asteroid. They were aimed to pass just in front of the vessel's nose, close enough to get attention without causing damage. But the plasma bolts never made it past the human ship. Instead of passing in front of the vessel, the energy bolt struck the dark hull directly. Expected to see shields flaring or at least some kind of defensive reaction. Instead, the plasma simply disappeared. The bolts hit the geometric patterns on the hull and vanished completely, like water soaking into sand. What just happened? Demanded. I don't know, Admiral, stammered the science officer. The plasma made contact with their hull, but there was no energy discharge, no reflection, no absorption signature. The energy just stopped existing. That's impossible. Yes, sir, it should be impossible. The bridge fell silent as everyone tried to process what they had just seen. Energy could not simply disappear. It had to go somewhere according to basic physics. But the human ship had somehow made 3 plasma bolts cease to exist. Captain OK report called. Admiral, my weapons officer confirms direct hits on the target, but our sensors show no damage to their hull. No energy feedback. It's like we fired at empty space. Before could respond, the human ship finally moved, but it did not turn to run or maneuver for battle. Instead, small sections of its hull simply opened up. Not weapon ports or missile launchers, just rectangular openings in the dark surface. Admiral, the sensor operator called out, his voice tight with fear. I'm reading massive kinetic acceleration from the human ship. Kinetic, you mean projectile weapons? Yes, sir, but the energy levels are. He paused, rechecking his readings. Admiral, whatever they just fired is moving at 15% of light speed. Scales went pale. Nothing could accelerate a physical object to those velocities. The energy requirements would be enormous, and the targeting at that speed would be impossible. Time to impact. 17 seconds, Admiral. On the main screen, they could see tiny streaks of light racing toward the frigate. Captain Okay's ship tried to maneuver, its engines flaring as it attempted evasive action. But the projectiles adjusted their course to compensate, tracking the frigate's movement perfectly. "Okay, emergency jump, get out of there," shouted into the comm. Trying to spin up the drive, Admiral, but the projectiles hit. There was no explosion, no dramatic fireball or energy discharge. Instead, 3 metal objects, each no larger than a person, punched through the frigate's shields as if they were not there. They penetrated the hull armor like it was paper, traveled through the entire length of the ship, and emerged from the other side. For a moment, continued flying normally. Then structural stress began to show. Atmosphere vented from dozens of holes. Internal bulkheads collapsed as support beams failed. The ship's back broke in 3 places simultaneously. "Hull breach on all decks," came Okay's panicked voice. "We're losing life support. Engineering is gone. Medical bay is gone. The projectiles went right through our reactor core without detonating it. How is that possible?" The frigate began to come apart. Not exploding, just falling to pieces like a building with its foundation removed. Escape pods launched frantically as crew members abandoned ship. "All stop," commanded his fleet. "Do not approach the debris field." The human ship's voice came over the communication channel again, still calm and emotionless. "Demonstration complete. You have 3 minutes to begin withdrawal." The bridge erupted in frightened conversation. "How did they do that?" demanded Captain. "Our shields should have stopped any projectile." "The targeting system," whispered Lieutenant O. "They hit a moving target from millions of kilometers away. The calculation required would need computers more advanced than our entire fleet combined." "And the speed," added another officer. "Accelerating solid matter to those velocities should require the energy output of a star." Stared at the wreckage of the floating in space. 3,000 crew members had just died, and he still did not understand how. The human weapons made no sense according to everything he knew about physics and warfare. "Admiral," the sensor operator called out, his voice shaking. "I'm detecting additional projectiles in flight." "From where?" "The same firing sequence, sir. The human ship launched multiple projectiles. 3 hit the frigate, but 14 others are still traveling through space." 14? Where are they going?" "Computing trajectories now. Admiral, they're targeted at 14 different ships in our formation." Felt ice in his veins. "When will they arrive?" "Various times over the next 4 hours, sir. The projectiles are following complex flight paths, accounting for our formation changes and evasive maneuvers." "But we haven't made any evasive maneuvers yet." "No, sir. They're accounting for maneuvers we haven't ordered yet." The terrible truth hit like a physical blow. The humans had not just calculated where his ships were. They had calculated where his ships would be, predicting his tactical decisions hours in advance. They had fired 17 shots in a single salvo, each one targeted at a specific vessel at a specific future time and position. "All ships emergency scatter," he ordered. "Maximum evasion, do not maintain formation." But even as he gave the orders, he knew it was probably useless. If the humans could predict his response that accurately, they had already accounted for his emergency protocols. "Admiral," the communications officer said quietly, "the human ship is broadcasting again." "Put it through." "You have 2 minutes to begin withdrawal. This is your final warning." The channel closed, looked around his bridge at the frightened faces of his officers. They had come here expecting to fight primitive humans with crude weapons. Instead, they had encountered something far worse. An enemy that could make energy weapons disappear. An enemy with projectile weapons that moved at impossible speeds. An enemy that could predict battle tactics hours in advance. An enemy that had just proven they could kill any ship in his fleet whenever they chose. The countdown continued. Admiral gripped the armrests of his command chair as his fleet scattered in all directions. 500 warships abandoned their careful formation and fled like startled prey animals. But even as they ran, the terrible countdown continued. 1 minute 30 seconds remaining, the communications officer reported, her voice barely a whisper. "Science team," barked, "I want answers. How did they destroy the—" Lieutenant O worked frantically at his station, pulling up sensor recordings and running analysis programs. His pale blue skin had turned almost white with fear. "Admiral, I've completed preliminary analysis of the attack," he said. "The results are disturbing." "Explain." The projectiles were simple metal slugs, primarily iron with trace elements. No explosives, no exotic materials, no energy signatures. Just solid metal accelerated to incredible velocity. "How much energy would that require?" demanded Captain O's hands trembled as he read the calculations. To accelerate those masses to 15% light speed would require the total energy output of our entire fleet for approximately 6 months. The bridge fell silent. That much energy should have been visible from across the solar system. Their sensors should have detected the acceleration process long before the projectiles fired. "But we saw no energy buildup," said slowly. "No power surge, no heat signature, no electromagnetic disturbance." "Exactly, Admiral. According to our instruments, the human ship used no energy at all. The projectiles simply appeared at those velocities." "That violates the fundamental laws of physics." "Yes, sir, it does." Commander Oss spoke up from his station. "What about their targeting system? How did they hit a moving target at that range?" O brought up another display. "This is even more disturbing, Commander. I've calculated the precision required for that shot. The human ship had to account for the frigate's movement, the gravitational effects of nearby celestial bodies, the rotation of spacetime around the star, and minute variations in the fabric of space itself. That would require computational power beyond anything we possess," whispered. "Furthermore," O continued, "they fired 17 projectiles simultaneously, each with different targets and arrival times. The processing requirements for those calculations exceed the combined computer capacity of our entire fleet by several orders of magnitude." Felt his confidence crumbling completely. They were not facing primitive humans with crude technology. They were facing a species with scientific capabilities that made the Confederation look like Stone Age savages. "Admiral," called the sensor operator, "long-range detection is picking up more contacts throughout the system." "How many?" "Difficult to determine, sir. At least 20 vessels, but they're using some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors can barely detect them." 20 against 500, muttered Oss. "Still good odds." "Are they?" asked grimly. "If each of their ships can do what we just witnessed, they could destroy our entire fleet without taking a single casualty." The sensor operator looked up from his station. "Admiral, I'm receiving telemetry from the other ships. The projectiles are still tracking their targets perfectly despite all evasive maneuvers." "Show me the tactical display." The main screen filled with a three-dimensional map of the scattered fleet. 14 red lines traced through space, each one following a complex path toward a specific ship. As watched, the alien vessels changed course repeatedly, but the red lines adjusted to match their movements. "It's like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it," said. "Maybe they do," O said quietly. "Admiral, I've been analyzing their sensor sweeps from earlier. The detail level was extraordinary. They scanned not just our ship configurations but our crew psychology profiles, tactical databases, and command structures. How could they possibly do that? Unknown, sir. But if they can read our computer systems remotely, they would have access to our tactical protocols, our command procedures, and our psychological profiles for every officer in the fleet. The terrible implications hit like a series of physical blows. The humans did not just have superior weapons and computers. They had studied their enemies completely. Every tactical manual, every strategic doctrine, every psychological weakness of every species in the Confederation was apparently known to them. 40 seconds remaining, reported the communications officer. Admiral, the sensor operator called out urgently. First impact in 12 minutes. The cruiser Divine Wind is targeted. Opened a channel to Captain X of the Divine Wind. Captain, you have a projectile inbound. Can you avoid it? We're trying, Admiral, but it keeps adjusting course to match our movements. It's like it knows where we're going to be. Time to impact. 11 minutes, 50 seconds, sir. Whatever this thing is, it's incredibly precise. Closed the channel and turned to his science officer. Analysis of their hull material. Still working on it, Admiral, but what we've learned is disturbing. The geometric patterns on their ship are not decorative. They appear to be functional structures operating at the quantum level. What kind of function? Near as we can tell, they're manipulating the fundamental forces of reality itself. Electromagnetic radiation, gravitational fields, strong and weak nuclear forces. The patterns seem to be reshaping the laws of physics in localized areas around their ship. That's impossible. Sir, 3 hours ago I would have agreed, but we just watched energy bolts cease to exist when they hit that hull. The humans have found a way to make matter and energy behave according to their will rather than natural law. Captain moved closer to the main display. Admiral, if they can manipulate fundamental forces, what else might they be capable of? Before anyone could answer, the human ship broadcast again. 20 seconds remaining. Begin withdrawal now or face total fleet destruction. Total fleet destruction, Oz laughed nervously. They have 20 ships against 500. Do they? Asked O softly. Admiral, consider what we've learned. They have weapons that ignore the laws of physics. They have computers that can predict our every move. They have sensors that can read our thoughts. They have hull materials that can rewrite reality. He paused, looking directly at, Sir, what if those 20 ships are not their entire fleet? What if this is just their local defense force? The blood drained from his face. Intelligence reports had suggested the humans were a young, primitive species confined to one solar system. But what if the reports were wrong? What if the humans had been deliberately appearing primitive while they studied their future enemies? Admiral, the communications officer said, her voice breaking. 10 seconds. All ships emergency retreat, commanded. Maximum speed, scatter formation, evacuate the system immediately. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. The humans had given them 30 minutes to withdraw. They had spent those 30 minutes learning exactly how outmatched they were. The retreat should have begun the moment that first energy bolt disappeared into the human ship's hull. 5 seconds, whispered the communications officer. Time's up, said the human voice over the comm system. On the sensor display, watched 20 additional contacts suddenly appear throughout the system, not emerging from hiding places, but simply materializing as if they had been invisible until this moment. Each new contact was even larger than the first human ship. The Confederation fleet found itself surrounded by vessels that could apparently ignore the fundamental laws of physics, ships that could predict every tactical move. Ships crewed by a species that had turned warfare into an exact science. Admiral, O said quietly, I don't think the humans invited us here to fight. I think they invited us here to learn. Learn what? That we are not the apex predators of the galaxy. They are. The horror of understanding finally hit every officer on the bridge. They had not encountered a primitive species to be conquered. They had encountered hunters who had been watching the galaxy for years, studying every species, learning every weakness, preparing for the day when someone would be foolish enough to threaten them. And that day had finally come. The first projectile impact came exactly on schedule. Admiral watched helplessly as the metal slug tore through the cruiser Divine Wind. Like the frigate before it, the massive warship did not explode dramatically. Instead, it simply came apart as critical structural points failed simultaneously. The projectile had been designed not just to penetrate the ship, but to cause maximum damage with surgical precision. Captain X's final transmission was barely audible over the static. Hull breach in 17 sections. Reactor containment failing. How did they know exactly where to hit us? The channel went dead, as 3,000 more crew members died in the cold vacuum of space. All ships full retreat, screamed into the fleet communications. Do not engage, repeat, do not engage the human vessels. But panic had already seized the Confederation fleet. Ships scattered in every direction, abandoning all formation and discipline. Some vessels collided with each other in their desperation to escape. Others fired wildly at targets that were not there, their crews driven mad by sensors that could no longer be trusted. Admiral, Lieutenant O called out, his voice hollow with despair. I've completed analysis of the Divine Wind's destruction. What did you find? Sir, the projectile did not just hit random points on the ship. It was specifically targeted to destroy life support, navigation, weapons control, and reactor containment in a precise sequence. The humans studied our ship designs well enough to know exactly how to kill us with maximum efficiency. Captain stared at the tactical display where 13 more red lines continued their relentless pursuit of fleeing ships. They planned this entire engagement from the beginning, didn't they? They knew we would come here. They knew how we would react. They knew exactly how many ships we would bring. More than that, said O. I've been reviewing the initial sensor sweeps. The humans were not just scanning our ships. They were scanning our crew's psychological profiles, our tactical training, our species' cultural responses to fear and authority. They built a complete behavioral model of our entire fleet. Meaning they know exactly how we will try to retreat. They know which ships will break formation first. They know which captains will panic and which will try to fight. They have predicted our defeat down to the individual crew member. As if to prove his point, the second projectile impact occurred precisely where and when the computers predicted. The destroyer Void Hunter tried a desperate emergency jump to faster-than-light speed, but the metal slug caught it just as its jump drive activated. The ship disappeared into hyperspace in pieces, its crew scattered across multiple dimensions. How many more impacts? Asked. 12 remaining, Admiral. One every 10 to 15 minutes for the next 3 hours. Can any of our ships escape? O studied the trajectory plots for a long moment. No, sir. The projectiles are actively adjusting course to account for every possible evasive maneuver. Even if our ships could somehow exceed their maximum speed ratings, the projectiles would still reach their targets. Slumped in his command chair. In less than an hour, his proud fleet had been reduced to scattered prey animals fleeing from an apex predator. Worse, they were not even being hunted. They were being systematically culled according to a predetermined schedule. Admiral, the communications officer said quietly, incoming transmission from the human ship. Put it through. The same calm, emotionless voice filled the bridge. Admiral, your continued presence in this system serves no purpose. Withdraw your remaining vessels immediately and no further demonstrations will be necessary. For a moment, considered trying to negotiate. Then he realized how pointless that would be. The humans had already demonstrated they knew everything about him, including his name and rank. They probably knew what he was thinking before he thought it. "This is Admiral," he replied. We are withdrawing. Please stop the attacks." "Negative. The demonstration will continue as scheduled. Your species needs to understand the consequences of aggression." The channel closed before it could respond. "Admiral," Commander Oss said desperately, "we have to warn the Confederation Council. They need to know what we've encountered here." "Do they?" asked O. "Sir, I've been thinking about our intelligence reports on the humans. We assumed they were primitive because they appeared primitive. But what if that was deliberate?" "What do you mean?" "What if the humans have been watching us for years? What if they deliberately allowed our scouts to see crude ships and basic technology while hiding their true capabilities?" The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. "They've been studying us," whispered, "learning our weaknesses, mapping our territories, cataloging our species. We thought we were the advanced civilizations exploring primitive worlds, but we were actually primitive civilizations being studied by advanced hunters." "How long?" asked. "How long have they been watching us?" Before anyone could answer, the sensor operator called out urgently, "Admiral, massive energy surge from the human ship." On the main screen, the dark vessel's geometric patterns began to glow with brilliant white light. But instead of weapons charging, something far more disturbing happened. The space around the ship began to bend and twist, as if reality itself was being reshaped. "What are they doing?" demanded. "Unknown, sir, but the gravitational readings are off the charts. They're manipulating spacetime itself." "For what purpose?" The answer came in the form of a massive holographic projection that appeared in the center of the alien fleet. The image was three-dimensional, perfectly clear, and impossibly huge. It showed a map of known galaxy with every inhabited world marked in detail. But the map was not from alien databases. It was from human records. The projection showed human observation posts throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of them, some dating back decades. Every major alien world, every military installation, every trade route, every resource deposit was marked and cataloged. The humans had been watching for generations. Worse, the map showed planned expansion routes, resource allocation schedules, and what appeared to be detailed invasion plans for every major alien civilization. The humans had not just been watching, they had been preparing. "My God," breathed Oss, "they've been getting ready to conquer the entire galaxy." "No," said O, studying the projection more carefully. "Look at the timeline markers. These plans are all defensive. The humans were not preparing to invade us. They were preparing for the day we would inevitably invade them." "How could they know we would attack?" "Because they understand us better than we understand ourselves. They studied every species in the galaxy and calculated that conflict was inevitable. So they prepared." The holographic projection zoomed in on the Sol system, showing dozens of hidden facilities throughout the asteroid belt and outer planets. Massive shipyards, weapon testing ranges, and what appeared to be training facilities for ground combat. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. "Admiral," the sensor operator said in a broken voice, "I'm counting over 300 human vessels in this system alone. They were there all along, but we couldn't detect them." 300 ships, repeated numbly. "We came here with 500 ships thinking we had overwhelming superiority." "Sir, there's more. I'm detecting similar facilities in 15 other star systems. The humans have been secretly colonizing space for decades." The third projectile impact destroyed the battleship Iron Claw, its massive armor useless against weapons that operated outside the normal laws of physics. Admiral did not even watch the destruction. He was too busy staring at the galactic map and understanding the true scope of human preparation. "They let us find them," he said finally. "They wanted us to attack." "Why would they want that?" asked. "To send a message," O answered. Not just to our fleet, but to every species in the galaxy. They wanted everyone to know what happens when humans are threatened. A demonstration. Exactly. They could have destroyed our entire fleet in the first minute of combat. Instead, they are killing us slowly, methodically, giving us time to understand exactly how outmatched we are. They want survivors to carry the story back to our. Looked around his bridge at the faces of his surviving officers. Fear, despair, and dawning comprehension showed in their expressions. They finally understood what they had encountered. Humanity was not a young, primitive species stumbling into galactic affairs. They were ancient hunters who had been patiently watching the galaxy's civilizations grow and develop. They had studied every species, learned every weakness, and prepared for the inevitable day when someone would threaten them. That day had come, and the galaxy's greatest military force had been effortlessly crushed by creatures who treated warfare as an exact science. All surviving ships withdraw to minimum safe distance and await further orders, commanded. Do not, under any circumstances, engage human vessels. As the remnants of the once proud Confederation fleet limped away from Earth, the human ships watched them go with the patience of apex predators who knew they did not need to chase prey that was already running. The galaxy had learned a new truth. Humanity was not the member of galactic civilization. They were its oldest observers, and they had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. The age of alien dominance was over. The age of human observation had begun.